Hello, everyone. This is Truby Chiavello with Primo Magazine, and today's date is July 12th, and I'm coming to you today with news from an Italian-American perspective, and we got some stories to share with you. It's going to be a big week coming up, July 16th, and that's a big week for Italian-American festivals, and July 16th, it's for Our Lady of Mount Carmel. There's a number of feasts scheduled for that day, and some of them will extend beyond that time. You have Our Lady of Mount Carmel in Hamilton, New Jersey. That's their 150th anniversary, so we commend them for their festival there. And then we have Our Lady of Mount Carmel in Brooklyn. That's a big feast in Brooklyn. That's where they'll have the Giglio, the long tower that they'll carry through the streets there in Brooklyn, and Our Lady of Mount Carmel in Franklin Square, New York, Staten Island, in Middleton, New York. You have Our Lady of Mount Carmel in Berkeley Heights, New Jersey, and then the Mount Carmel feasts in Jersey City. Big Italian-American festival because this commemorates the Virgin Mary when she came to see St. Simon Stock, a Carmelite priest, on July 16th in 1251 in England, and she gave him the brown scapula. And the brown scapula is a necklace that's there. It's got two medallions of the Virgin, and if you wear it, and if you pass away wearing it, you won't have to suffer purgatory. So Our Lady of Mount Carmel was the patron saint for a number of villages all throughout southern Italy. You talk about the regions Campania, Calabria, Basilicata, Apulia, and Sicily. And that's because the Carmelite priests were so prevalent there, and she is the protectress of the Carmelite priests. So this is, in essence, why a lot of these villages and cities in southern Italy made Our Lady of Mount Carmel, which is the Virgin Mary, their patron saint. That's why they celebrate it so enthusiastically in so many places. Particularly in New York, we have so many Italian Americans that came from southern Italy. Their parents came from southern Italy, and Italian festivals. It brings me to a sad story. The Mercer County Italian-American Festival. That's in Mercer County, New Jersey. And if you just give me a moment, I want to pay tribute to John Scarpati Sr. He passed away, I believe, in June, late June. A very nice man. I spoke to him on the phone a number of times. And I was there when he began the Mercer County Italian-American Festival. I believe it was in 2005, if memory serves me correctly. And he was in the recycling business. A real can-do guy, full of optimism, just a very nice man. And he started the Italian-American Festival there in Mercer County. And the proceeds he received, he used to give it away to a bunch of charities there, all in southern New Jersey. And the feast stopped temporarily because of COVID-19. But I think now it's going to reconvene through his children. And so my sympathies to his family, my sympathies to everyone who knew him. It was a fine Italian-American, a fine man, a real patriot, a person who loved the United States, who loved his community there in southern New Jersey, his family, of course, and just all things Italian-American. So, our condolences are with his family and everyone who knew him. And the Mercer County Italian-American Festival, I have to find out I think it's reconvened, but it should be in September of this year. So we'll keep an eye on that. But there's some other news. The Conference of Presidents of Major Italian Americans announced that and the Italian Sons and Daughter of America, they announced the Donna Distinto Award. And this year it was given to Pamela Dorazio Dean, and she's the director of the Italian-American Museum in Cleveland. It was also given to Andrea Bartlett, who has been, she's a woman who's been involved in the Italian-American Future Leaders. and Maria Palladino of the Italian-American Museum in New York City. And this is the Conference of Presidents of Italian-American, the Conference of Presidents of Major Italian-American Organizations and the Italian Sons and Daughters of America provide this award. And so we want to congratulate everyone involved there. But this brings us to Italian-American organizations because I received a press release a week ago from NIAF, the National Italian-American Foundation, and this will be their 50th anniversary. Think about that for a second. NIAF has been around for, I thought they were older than that, but no, this is their 50th year, and they're going to have a big gala come this October. It's going to be held at the Washington Hilton, which is right off of Connecticut Avenue, just north of DuPont Circle. It's right around the block, actually, from the NIAF headquarters, which is this beautiful mansion that they bought some years ago. It's in 1860 19th Street in Washington, D.C., and it's up for sale. The building's up for sale for about $4 million. And so, I mean, it's in walking distance, the Hilton, from their former headquarters. The NIAF was started by a priest, Gino Baroni, who was a figure here in Washington, D.C. He was involved in ethnic studies, and he was going to work for the White House, I think, at one point in time. And so he began this organization, and it's done great work. It's done very good work. And so, we congratulate him. I congratulate him on this 50th anniversary, and hope to attend their gala. Looks like it's going to be a fine presentation. They've had so many famous people come down the pike. Just looking at their research, they had Frank Sinatra who won an award from them. I think their first gala, they had both Presidents Ford and President Carter. Now, this started back, they officially started the organization in 1975. So that was a campaign, it was an election year for the presidency. So you had Ford and Carter show up at their gala event. So it was a big event here in Washington, D.C. It's always covered by the Washington Post. And, like all the organizations, Sons of Italy, I just mentioned the Conference of Presidents of Major Italian-American Organizations, Unico National. They've all been, a number of organizations as well, have been giving money and scholarships, helping a lot of young people get ahead. So this is their 50th anniversary, and, wish them well. Congratulations to them. So this was a big week in other aspects of the news for Italian Americans. Italian Americans and Catholicism, it's tied to we're tied together, and it's just so many of us are Roman Catholics. Many of us are pious Roman Catholics, and the last week was big news in the Pope Francis. He passed away. But one of the last things he did back in 2021, July 16th of 2021, and I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly, it's in Latin, Traditionis Custodes, a decree he submitted to restrain the Latin Mass, the Tridentine Rite. Now, if you're new to Catholicism or you don't know much about Catholicism, this was the Mass, the ceremonial Mass. Going back to 1525 or something like that, 1570, I'm sorry, was when they had the Latin. So 1570 until 1969, that was the method of celebrating the Holy Sacrament community. You would go to Mass, and it was all in the Latin vernacular, very serious, very ceremonial. And the priest would have his back to the parishioners, and he would face the altar. Now, when I was coming along, I didn't really know this Mass that much. I knew nothing about it, actually. I was brought up under the new Mass. The new Mass was put in place by Pope Paul VI. And the new Mass has been the way it's been right around the 1980s. A number of parishioners throughout the country, mostly in the United States, wanted to celebrate the Latin Mass, the Latin Rite. And it began to increase in popularity. So on July 7th in 2007, Pope Benedict, he issued a Summorum Pontificum, which is a decree that he gave to the bishops all around the country, saying that they could, that priests, if they wanted to say the Latin Mass, they could without a bishop's permission. And this is what they did. And so it increased in popularity. He allowed the Latin Mass to be said for weddings, baptisms, and confirmations, and a number of other things. Now, my church, St. Mary, Mother of God, I've spoken about this before, here in Washington, D.C., we had the Latin Mass, and it was on Sunday we would offer the Latin Mass. This began back as far as the 1980s, and I never attended that Mass. But when they had holy days of obligation, like All Saints' Day or something like that, they would have the Latin Mass. And it was quite sobering for me. I didn't know how in-depth it was, how solemn it was, in a way, very serious. When I say serious, you really felt like you had to focus, pay attention, and be there for the Mass. And I thought it was very spiritual because for me, I didn't know my grandparents. They died about 20 years before I was born. So what did I share with them? I didn't know them. They lived in the same town I did, but, towns change, people change, places change. But the one thing they shared with me was attending the Latin Mass. And I thought about that when I was finished attending a Mass in the Latin Rite, the Tridentine Rite, they call it. And it struck me that this is something that I carry over with me with my grandparents. So I was very pleased with it. Well, what happened was, as you know, Pope Francis, Traditionis Custodes, was the decree that he submitted on July 16, 2021, that was going to restrict the Latin Mass. It was going to reverse what Pope Benedict allowed, Pope Benedict XVI, the Summorum Pontificum. He was going to tell the bishops, and he did tell the bishops, that they had to decide about, it was up to them if they wanted to restrict the Mass, ban it outright, or do whatever it is they wanted to. A number of ceremonies, you couldn't use the Latin Mass anymore, so he was really cracking down on the Latin Mass. And he said the reason why he did this, Pope Francis, if you recall, was that back in July of 2020, he had submitted a survey, a questionnaire, to the bishops all around the world, specifically on the topic of the Latin Mass. He wanted to see how they felt about it. And he said that the results of the survey that he received was they didn't like it. They didn't like the Latin Mass. They felt uncomfortable with it. They thought it was a deterrent to the faith. So that was the reason, he said, why he went ahead and decided to crack down on it, restrict it. When he said that the bishops had the authority now to decide about the Latin Mass, basically the message was that, diminish it, get rid of it as much as you can. And that's what happened here in Washington, D.C. The bishop here, Bishop Gregory, he decided that the Latin Mass that we had, and he had a whole thing, we were allowed to come and visit with him and talk and tell us. He allowed everyone to speak their mind about how much they liked the Latin Mass. Everybody liked it. Everybody was in favor of it. Even those like me who really didn't attend it, but still I appreciated the tradition. I appreciated the fact that it was still there in my parish. But the deal was already done. It was a kangaroo court. It was a kangaroo presentation on his part. He then made the decision to ban the Mass at our church and transferred over to the Franciscan monastery. And when that happened, we lost half our parishioners. And our church is in a difficult neighborhood to begin with, and we had a difficult time making up for that shortfall in funds. Well, it turns out that, Pope Francis, rest his soul, he is passed away. A reporter, an American reporter who covers the Vatican, her name is Diane Montagna. A couple weeks back, she received a copy of the results of the questionnaire that Pope Francis said the bishops had stated that they didn't like the Latin Mass. Well, she got a copy of that questionnaire, and guess what? The results show the opposite. The results show that most of the bishops back then, when this questionnaire was submitted to them, that they liked the Latin Mass, that they thought it was good, and they wanted to keep it. Well, this is opposite of what Pope Francis said. Apparently 62% of the bishops, according to poll results, said that the Latin Mass had a positive impact on the episcopal life of the diocese or of the church or of the masses, and that they supported a coexistence of the two masses, the Latin Mass, which is the extraordinary Mass, and the new Mass, which is defined as the ordinary Mass. And these were the results they got in the United States. These were the results that they got in France. All over the world, the bishops had stated that they liked the Latin Mass and wanted to keep it. So it raises serious questions about Pope Francis. Why did Pope Francis say the opposite and use that to crack down on the Mass? It was immediately in the Vatican. Matteo Bruni was the spokesperson of the Vatican. He is the liaison with the press. He first questioned whether or not the reporter had the right material. Was it a fraud? Was it a fake? And he said there might have been other reasons why the Pope wanted to crack down on the Latin Mass. Well, this past week, she had a copy of the report that she took a picture of, and she shows the number, the document number on the results of the questionnaire. And this is a document the Vatican has, so it records the decree, the document, whatever it is that he has officially. So she has a copy of that, and that verifies that this was the actual questionnaire. So the question comes down to now, because I believe that Pope Francis, definitely wanted to crack down on the Latin Mass. He sent out a questionnaire. The results weren't what he had expected, what he wanted 500 years. And why would he want to do that? Well, he wants to do that because of a lot of the things we're faced with nowadays. You have a bunch of people that came of age at a time when they really wanted to embrace this utopian existence, this Marxist perception that people in positions of power, of education, could create a society that you and I would just love. And that's not the case. When they come up with these results before they're tried out, we usually reject them, and they hate that, and they want us to embrace it. He came of age, he was a priest. He wasn't ordained until 1969, Pope Francis, when he was Jorge Bergoglio in Argentina. And at that time, he had Vatican II, right? And I'm sure it impressed him. I'm sure it was a thing that he really wanted to hold on to. Vatican II, I still don't know the purpose of it, why they did it, and everything involved in it. I've spoken to a lot of priests, some of whom were there when the Second Vatican Council was convened in Rome, and they explained, what it was all about, the reform they were doing in the church and everything else. It's very convoluted. They can't explain it in one or two sentences. It takes a whole, 20-minute conversation. Still, you don't know what it is they wanted to do and why. I think the one thing I can say is that they wanted to diminish sin. They wanted to diminish the idea of a hell, of some place that you go if you committed sins here in this world, and to diminish the traditions that we have and the connection we have with God for the purpose of guiding our way here in this world. And, Karl Marx said it best. He said, never let the old beliefs come back. And I think this is what happened when he received the results. He was surprised, shocked, but the bishops even liked it. And that's why he doesn't want us to go back to the old days. He wants us to embrace Vatican II, all these wonderful changes that they've made. And that you and I have been there before. If they reform something that works, it's not going to work. The reform's not going to work. And that's what's basically happened. The church has become very weak here in the United States. It's become weaker in Western Europe. Surprisingly, in Latin America and Central America. The only place where it's really grown, is in Africa and in some parts of Asia. but where the Catholic faith began and prospered, that's where it's weakest, and it's all a result of the changes they made in Vatican II, the changes in the Mass, and the lack of the magisterium, the bishops, and the Pope to understand it and perhaps go back a little bit. That's what Pope Benedict wanted to do. Pope John Paul II, he was doing that a little bit as well, but to take a step back from these incredible reforms they've made and preserve the tradition so that we will be more interested in our faith. And when somebody like Pope Francis came along, he didn't want to do that. And that's why I think you have this situation here with the Latin Mass. If it's true and we're 90% there already, Pope Leo then must revert back traditionis custodes. He must allow the priests once again to say the Latin Mass and do what they need for their parishes, for the health of their parishes. And I think that's the best way forward. It's the old world that's the quote-unquote old world is always being knocked down. And we Italian Americans are at the front line. And this brings us to another big event that happened related to us, related to our existence in New York City, the Big Apple. Now, New York City is very, very important to Italian Americans. This is Ellis Island. This is where many of our grandparents, even if you live in a state far away from New York, most likely your grandparents or great-grandparents, when they came from Italy, they came in through Ellis Island. My grandparents, for instance, they got married. They met in New York City, and they got married in Our Lady of Pompeii in the West Village, as did so many people. And so it's very important for us to try and preserve our influence, preserve our experiences there, our lives there. And the situation now with politics and the mayor's race is challenging us. And we have to be up for this challenge, and we have to work hard to get the kind of person we want in City Hall. Zoran Mamdani, as you may know, he's a Democratic nominee for mayor of New York, and he is a Democratic socialist. Well, that's really saying he's a socialist, and that's really saying he's a communist, because if you look at a bunch of his ideas, he's 33 years old. He's both parents are from India. He was born in Uganda, and then he came here to the United States in 1996 by way of South Africa. They immigrated from South Africa to the United States. And he made the news this last week regarding Italian Americans because he had a 2020 tweet back in June of 2020 where he is giving the middle finger to the Columbus statue in Queens, and the text that he has in his tweet is "Tear it down." So this is the statue of Christopher Columbus in Astoria, Queens. He's taking a selfie. He's got a picture of his hand, and it's giving the finger to the statue which is right behind him, right behind his hand, and he's saying "Tear it down." Well, my last podcast, I said that he was going to tear down one or more of the Columbus statues there, monuments there in New York City, because I felt that his socialistic experiments were going to fail, and so therefore he was going to look for a scapegoat, and the scapegoat was going to be Columbus. Well, now I'm going to change my mind about this. He's not going to wait until his socialist experiments fail. One of the first things he's going to do is try to tear down one or more of the statues there in New York City. So Italian Americans, I said this in my when I spread this situation around on social media, they can't vote for this guy. They have to do what they can to get someone else to get in there. The last thing you need in New York City is an anti-American communist who hates our history. He did this back in 2020. He had just been a citizen for 2 years. So he's a citizen for 2 years, and he's already cursing out America. He's cursing out our founders. He's cursing out the key explorer. Columbus is more than just an Italian-American hero. If you go to the U.S. Capitol building here, the stone that they laid down, the first stone was laid down in 1792. in October 11th of 1792 to commemorate the discovery of the Americas by Columbus. Columbus was a hero to the Americans who revolted against the British, because the British hated him. And the British hated him because they tried to malign his character, because he was the founder of the New World for the Spanish. And that was their main rivalry, right? You remember that? And that's why they hated him. So we said basically, well, if you hate him, we love him. And that's what we did. We embraced this explorer who is overlooked in many ways, in that, he left the old world. He came to the new world. He brought with him, he gave us the means to leave where we came from, to leave the kings and the emperors and all the other people that ruled by tyranny, and that leave our home and come and start a new home. And that's what he's all about in many respects. And so for someone like Mamdani to disgrace him, that's a disgrace to the Italian-American community. That's also a disgrace to the United States. That statue, by the way, of Christopher Columbus in Astoria, Queens, that was it was dedicated in 1941, but it was put in place in 1943. And it was created by Angelo Vavolo, and it was the Italian-American community there, also the Greek and the other ethnic groups, had pulled their money together to buy the statue. It was all in bronze, to pay the sculptor, but they couldn't afford money for the pedestal. So where did they get the money for the pedestal? They got it from the Roosevelt administration, a Democrat, and the Works Progress administration. They gave them the funds to put together the pedestal. So Mamdani is cursing out a tangible example of Roosevelt's New Deal, of Roosevelt's belief in giving money to workers, giving money to Americans to work, giving them a job to get them through the Great Depression. That was part of the Works Progress administration. So he's just offending everybody. And that's why I think it's important for us to come together and try to defeat him. The next podcast I have, I'm going to look at a candidate that I'm going to endorse. But before we get there, I think it's important for us to look at what the reaction was to this. When it came out of the news, it was the New York Post and some other things. Angelo Vavolo of the Columbus Heritage Coalition, he was quick to respond, and he said that to the New York Post, "We will defend Columbus Day and Columbus statues." And then he said, in reference to Mamdani, "He is being disrespectful to the Italian-American community. I don't think he will be a mayor for all the people of New York City." And then he said, about Mamdani, "If you offend one community, you offend all communities." And this is something that everybody has to understand. If somebody like that is going to offend us for Columbus, where's he going to go next? He's going to go. He's attacked the Italians this year. He'll attack the Greeks next year. The Irish the year after. The Germans, of course. Anybody that's there. And somebody told me on social media that Columbus wasn't Italian. He sailed for the Spanish. And he's right about that, by the way. He did sail for the Spanish. So I said, then you better get all the Hispanic community, or the Latino community there in New York, and join us to defend Columbus and defeat Mamdani. And, it goes more than just Columbus statues and other things. Yeah, what I don't understand is this. You have, he said a number of things regarding anti-Semitic comments that he's made. He started out in politics because he wanted to defend the rights of Palestinians, but he then takes it too far, like everybody does, and attacks the Jews. And this is what I don't understand, is that you have 1 million Jews living in New York City, and they have lowered the count of the Italians. I agree with Mr. Vavolo. He says there's 800,000 Italians in New York. That's, I think, as many. I think he's right about that. We have about 800,000 Italian Americans in New York City. The counts say that it's 500,000, but I think it really is 800,000. So if we have this number that's there, why can't we defeat somebody like Mamdani? Let's hope that's back. And I hate to believe that we have Italian Americans, residents of New York, and Jews and other people, Democrats, who believe he is the right man for the job, that he's somehow or another going to be able to fulfill any of these promises that he's made. He's going to give you free money, free stuff, a free house or something like that. You know how long it takes to build a building and get the permits and do everything? He's going to allow you a grocery store. Can you imagine that? He's going to put a grocery store together, and that somehow or another is going to lower the price of food. Where has this worked? Where? It didn't work. It hasn't worked in Cuba. This didn't work in India, his home country. It didn't work in China or Soviet Russia. In all these countries, it's funny, when they turn away from socialism, they don't turn away gradually. They run to capitalism because of the misery that socialism has provided to them. And it's just the way it is in New York right now. We have to remember who we are. I liked it that the Italian Tribune, here's a newspaper article over there. I don't think you can see it here. Wonderful newspaper, by the way. I love it. I advertise in it a lot, and it's really quite nice. Covers there the area of North New Jersey in New York City, and this was their edition, July 10th, and the headline was "Italian Americans Rise Up, Forgotten by the Candidates, Erased from the Monuments." This is by Anthony E. Colombo Jr. on behalf of the Italian American Civil Rights League. I never met Mr. Colombo. He's apparently an attorney in San Diego, but he spends a lot of time in New York, of course, and is involved here in a number of things that are happening in New York. And he says, he writes, "In a city obsessed with identity politics, our absence is not accidental, and it is tragic. It is our silence that we as a community have allowed to spread. We can be silent no longer. It is time that collectively our voices must become a deafening roar." So he's right about that. The Italian Americans have to jump up and realize that it's ethnic politics nowadays, it's race politics nowadays, and we have to stand up and we have to be counted. And it's not just the statues, okay? This is what he says. He says, a number of weeks ago, the New York Police Department Lieutenant Patrick Gordon, president of the department's Guardian Association, claimed openly to Mayor Eric Adams that too many Italian Americans had been promoted in the department. Wrapped in its bureaucratic language, the statement ignores the promotions earned through integrity and sacrifice. It is a slur that is both racist and perhaps even more shocking, it is dismissive. This is what's going on. Everything that they're doing with regards to Columbus and now here with the New York City Police Department, they're dismissing the contributions that Italian Americans have made. And this is why we need to speak up. This is why we have to get out there in New York City and elsewhere and support our right to exist and go and campaign against people like Mamdani and others who are going to take away not only our statues but our way of life. The fact that we were store owners, he wants to go and take that out. The fact that we're police officers, he wants to defund the police. Now, the fact that we're developers, real estate developers in many cases, we're working the construction trade. Well, he wants to turn that over to the government. It's the government control of the means of production. It's the government control of everything. This is what he wants to do. And this is why we have to wake up and say, no, we're not going to let you do that. We're not going to vote for it. We're going to vote for one of these other candidates. You have Andrew Cuomo, and you have Eric Adams, and you have Curtis Sliwa. So, what I hope to do in my next podcast, and I hope to bring this to you very soon, I'm going to endorse one of those other candidates, and we'll see who that is. But until then, I want to thank you very much for listening to me today. It's a big month for Italian Americans with the July 16th Our Lady of Mount Carmel feasts and so many other things that are going on. We have so many challenges that are there that affect us. That's why we have to come together. That's why we have to speak up. That's why we have to organize and speak truth to power. And it's not only here in New York City, but it's also in the Vatican. It's also in our church. We love our church. We don't want decision makers to ruin it. We want to keep the things that are good, that work, that help us in our lives, in our communities, in our families, in our faiths. We don't want you to change it for the worse. We don't want you to ruin it. And that's why we're speaking up now. Well, I hope you like this video. I'm going to have more coming your way. Primo Magazine, www.onlineprimo.com. And I'm interviewing authors. So if you're an author and you have a book that's either about Italy or has a Italian-American theme, please get in touch with me. You might be able to. I might be able to interview you here on our podcast. So until then, I want to thank you very much. God bless everybody, and thank you for listening. Please like and subscribe to our channel, and we'll have more coming your way. Thank you very much.